Today, I'm taking the world's most luxurious sleeper train for 125 hours across an entire continent. This is the famous Orient Express. Step back in time with me on this iconic journey, from Paris all the way to Istanbul. I'll show you a never-before-seen insight as we travel through 8 countries in what's also the world's most expensive train ticket. From the various accommodation on board, Michelin-star dining in the 3 restaurants, and of course the entertainment in the bar car. With that, let's pick up our story in Paris. Bonjour and welcome to Paris. We've just been collected from our hotel and are en route to Gare de l'Est, where our journey will begin. Gare de l'Est is Paris's 5th busiest station, though it's significant to us, being the historic starting point of the very first Istanbul-bound Orient Express journey in 1889. We dropped off at one of the station's side entrances and warmly welcomed by the train staff, whilst our bags are taken ahead of us to our sleeper car.
Well, hello there and welcome back to the channel, where we're about to get on board the Orient Express. I'm super excited about this, and it's something that's been a long time in the making. So without any more to say, let's go and get on board.
It seems surreal being in a busy city centre station and walking down a red carpet. Check-in is dealt with promptly on the platform, and within no time at all we're issued our tickets, all the way to Istanbul. By point of comparison, here's an original ticket for the route back in 1898. With tickets in hand and anticipation building, we join in with the celebration on the platform as more passengers arrive. Millie and I are excited to see some familiar faces from when we took this trip last year. Shall we go and get on board then? We've been assigned carriage A, which like almost all the train dates back from the 1920s, and it really is like stepping back in time.
Well, welcome on board. We've arrived in our cabin and of course formally introducing the lovely Millie back to the channel.
I'm back.
You are back indeed. Your catchphrase is back in the building. So anyway, with that we're just about to set off, I think. So before we show you all around, let's get settled in and have a glass of champagne, I think.
Just like that, we lurch forwards, signalling the start of one of the world's most iconic journeys. I guess this also begs the question, what's our route? Well, given the scale of our Paris to Istanbul itinerary over the next 5 days, let's focus on the first segment. Our initial 24 hours will see us travel southeast, through France, into Switzerland and Liechtenstein, passing through the Alps and arriving into Saint-Anton, Austria tomorrow morning. To follow our route along visually, we're presented with these beautiful itinerary cards, which I'll share with you at the beginning of each day of our trip.
So now we're off, let's take a look around the cabin.
Let's!
We're in a vintage LX series sleeper car, which features 10 compartments. We've been assigned room number 7. Belmont calls these historic compartments, and they're authentic to what you'd have travelled in back in the 1920s and 30s. By day, a private lounge with a comfy bunket sofa for 2, and by night these convert to an upper and lower bed. I'll of course show you these in detail this evening. In terms of storage, our large bags are placed at the end of the carriage, accessible whenever we like, whereas our carry-on can be placed in the overhead luggage racks. Whilst there's a fan, these are fully air-conditioned and can be individually adjusted here. This train does run in winter months, and in turn actually has the original coal-fired heating, which George, our cabin attendant, demonstrates for us here. Though it's still summer, so I think we'll give the heat a miss for now. In terms of bathroom facilities, this is where it gets interesting. An enclosed wash basin with hot and cold water is in your cabin, whilst there's a separate toilet further down the carriage. Back in the 1920s, you'd have used a chamber pot in your room. At least we won't be using one of those. And in a surprise parallel to my flight reviews, there's even a Dior amenity kit, which I guess makes sense as Belmont is owned by LVMH. As we glide through the French countryside, I make it time for afternoon tea. This is served in room and consists of light pastries and charcuterie. It's also a chance for the obligatory caffeine hit, as we have quite the eventful evening to prepare for. You may be wondering what the other rooms are like on board. Well, further down the train you'll find the opulent grand suites, of which there are just 3 per carriage. Each are named after the train's various destinations. Let's take a look inside Istanbul, of which Millie and I travelled in last year to Venice. There's dining space which naturally offers up caviar and free-flowing champagne from a dedicated butler 24/7. In addition, there's a sofa and the most comfortable double bed, with intricate wooden panelling and the finest marquetry. Oh, and you also get an ensuite bathroom with heated floors and an Italian marble shower. Sadly for this trip, with prices north of $140,000, it's well beyond anything I can fathom.
So as we glide ever closer towards Switzerland, yes, that's our next country that we're going to be going through, it's actually time that we prepare for dinner. Now, dinner on board the Orient Express is a very formal affair, and my usual attire of a NASA hoodie is not going to cut it. Obviously, you'd think maybe this might, but no, it is a full dinner jacket. But I come prepared, so let's get changed into something a little more formal that we've very rarely seen on this channel.
There are 3 restaurant cars on board, each uniquely themed. For our first dinner, we've been assigned L'Oriental. Dating from 1927 and built in Birmingham, L'Oriental features Chinese-style lacquered wall panels. It's a beautiful car and a fitting venue for the start of our journey east. Let's take a look at the menu then. All have been curated by Michelin star chef Jean Humbert. There's also a separate caviar menu, which is chargeable unfortunately. I think we'll leave that for now. In terms of drink, well, thankfully it's all included, though I'll add it didn't used to be in previous years. I just have to sample their free-flowing Ruinart Rosé champagne. We're initially served an amuse-bouche of ravioli and parmesan sauce, which is spectacular, all whilst the world rushes past outside. Our current location is Strasbourg on the French-German border, around 250 miles from Switzerland. Back inside, our appetizer has arrived. Lobster in summer vinaigrette, mixed vegetables and marigold flowers. For the main event, we're served beef pétivier with foie gras, herb salad and gratin dauphinois. I find this most similar to the British beef Wellington, and whilst it's super tasty, I would say the beef is a little tough. Our waiter Peter insisted I add the Venice Simplon Orient Express pin next to my NASA badge. I feel it's a worthy companion on my lapel.
So back from a lovely first evening here on the Orient Express, and we're back to our lovely room. It's been made up ready for sleep.
It looks so comfy.
Doesn't it? However, we have our first predicament.
Do we?
We do. It's bunk beds. Who's getting the top? Who's getting the bottom? Of course, being a gentleman, I've got to offer the opportunity for Millie to decide which bed she wants.
I think I'm going to go with the bottom bunk, please.
No problem at all. That leaves me in the top. Let's hope I don't fall out.
Rather you than me.
Oh, goodness.
Waiting on our beds are these beautiful kimonos, ones that will fall in my suitcase for sure. Whilst I'm not convinced it's my colour, it's certainly a comfy change up from the otherwise mandated smart dress code on board. Now I actually think the top bunk is a win here, don't tell Millie. It's super comfortable and by far the best sleeper train bed I've ever experienced. Night all. Well, good morning from Austria. During our slumber, we've passed through the rest of France, Switzerland and Liechtenstein. I am, however, a little confused, as why we have a prolonged stop here in Saint Anton. I guess we'll have to head to breakfast and find out shortly. This is served back in L'Oriental, though we've been given free rein to sit where we please. The menu is rather unconventional and is normally intended to be a lighter affair served in your cabin, but for the first morning they offer this in the restaurants. Let's kick off with a strong caffeine hit in form of a cappuccino and get stuck in. There's avocado and grapefruit, caviar and scrambled eggs with crispy bacon. I find it a rather disjointed affair, but still in all very tasty.
Well, hello from Saint Anton. We're here in Austria. Have you been to Austria before, Millie?
I have.
Have you? When did you go?
I went skiing with school.
Well, I don't think we're going to do any skiing today, but we have got an unscheduled stop here because there's been a landslide, and I don't mean to get dramatic and hark back to the original story of the Orient Express, but you probably couldn't even make this up. There has literally been a landslide further down the track. So we're stuck here for a few hours whilst that's cleared.
Now this is where the flexibility and professionalism of the train staff is tested to the limit. 90 passengers stranded because of a landslide for 5 hours. What exactly do you do? Well, first of all, the location is certainly on our side. Just look how beautiful this town is. So at the 11th hour, the staff organised a brief excursion into town for us, complete with lunch at the cutest alpine lodge. It's impressive to me when you think how the phone call must have gone this morning. Hey, we need to book 90 people in for lunch please. Apparently the only issue the lodge had was the amount of wait staff available, but of course our train has an entire team of waiters to take care of that. We're informed the landslide has been cleared, so it's full steam ahead to get back on board and on with our journey. Just in the nick of time too, as the weather seems to have turned. Now we're very much back on the move. Where are we heading next? We'll continue east for the next 500 miles, passing Vienna and into Hungary, arriving into Budapest tomorrow morning. As we wind through the Austrian Alps, we're served a light afternoon tea with, well, not quite DC, but Coke Zero will do. It's nice to be back on the move again, albeit rather behind schedule. And just before we head for dinner and continue on our journey to Istanbul, I recently found out every month I'm being charged for an additional Amazon subscription. Well, today's video sponsor, Rocket Money, is here to help. Rocket Money is an all-in-one finance platform that helps you save more and spend less. This personal finance app allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings, all in one place. I'm using Rocket Money to set up smart savings. By choosing the amount and the frequency, Rocket Money will automatically deposit savings into a smart savings account, which you can withdraw at any time. I use Rocket Money to cancel unwanted subscriptions. It safely and securely identifies recurring charges and cancels them with just one tap. You can even lower your bills. Rocket Money will negotiate your bills for you, from your internet service bills to your cable and phone. To save more and spend less, join the 3.4 million members using Rocket Money. I've got the hookup. Go to rocketmoney.com/trektrendy or by clicking the link in the description to get started for free or unlock even more features with premium. That's rocketmoney.com/trektrendy to get started for free. I make it dinner time and doesn't Millie look phenomenal this evening? Let's lock up. It's worth referencing that each room does indeed lock, which is not all too common on sleeper trains unfortunately. And we'll head to a new restaurant this evening, Les Toilettes du Nord. Built in 1926 by Birmingham Railways, originally running on the train service from Paris to Amsterdam, of which this car is named. Standouts for me are the beautiful and intricate marquetry throughout. Let's settle into our table to the rear of the carriage. Time to have a proper look at tonight's menu. Naturally, I must have another glass of the delicious Runar Rosé as we tuck into some of the freshly baked bread. To start, we're served chicken egg, green pea and carrot juice soup, which is really good. Outside our window, the world continues to glide by as we pass through Austria, just south of Salzburg. For main course, we both opt for the duck confit, which you may have not seen on the menu. Basically, if you don't fancy something, you can choose from a variety of alternatives by inquiring with your waiter. To close, we're served strawberries and raspberries, fresh cream with an almond lace biscuit. With dinner out of the way, we really must check out the famous bar car 3674. This is the true heart of the train, glowing with style and glamour. It's the perfect place for an after dinner drink or 5. Along with some live music from our fantastic resident pianist on the baby grand piano. Shall we take a glance at the extensive cocktail menu? As mentioned yesterday evening, all alcohol is included, aside from a few top shelf bottles of champagne. Though with so much quality booze included, I'd not be tempted to push the boat out further. Now I think we really must turn in. We have quite the busy one tomorrow. Budapest beckons. Well, good morning and welcome to the historic and majestic Budapest. Due to the landslide, it means we've arrived 15 hours behind schedule. Ordinarily, with no landslide impacting our timings, we'd have stayed overnight here, enjoyed an evening river cruise, and dined in the Museum of Fine Arts. Perhaps rather selfishly, an additional night on board the world's most luxurious train was actually an added perk for me, but I'm aware many were looking forward to their time in Budapest.
Well, it's a very good morning and a welcome to Budapest, Hungary. We've finally arrived and we've just been presented with our hotel key. Now, we're not going to be staying here, of course, but it's somewhere we can go and freshen up, take a shower, have some breakfast and relax a little bit before we continue on our incredible journey.
It's all but a short transfer from Budapest station over to the iconic Four Seasons Hotel. This Art Nouveau style hotel is a destination in itself. Though with no time to sleep in one of the dreamy high thread count beds, there's just enough time to gaze out over the Danube and head for a well needed shower. In what seems like no time at all, we're whisked back on board our coach for the short transfer over to the railway station. We have quite the welcome committee to greet us back to the train, complete with local violinists.
Oh, it's so nice to be back on board this lovely train, but also in the cool because it's pretty hot outside. Anyway, let's get back in the cabin. Hello, Millie.
Oh, hey.
You've gone ahead, you're settling in, nice and cold?
Enjoying the aircon.
Yeah, it is good, isn't it? What do we have here, though?
We've got a treat.
And a treat we have, another ice cold bottle of Ruinart Rosé, all ready for our departure. So what does the next leg of our journey have in store for us? We'll be heading 500 miles southeast over the border into Romania, arriving into the capital Bucharest tomorrow afternoon. With all this excitement and Ruinart drinking, I think it's time we head to lunch. Let's walk down the train to La Toilette du Nord and see what's on offer this afternoon. We'll kick things off with some freshly baked bread and a lovely ice cold DC as the Hungarian countryside rolls along outside our window. I'm ecstatic to find my favourite caprese salad is offered as a starter, a refreshing Italian staple. For main we're served guinea fowl, mushroom rigatoni with a parmesan sauce, and to those of you that haven't tried it before, it's similar to chicken, just gamier. To close off a fabulous lunch, we're presented with roasted cherries and pistachio ice cream. Wow, I couldn't eat lunch like this every day, that's for sure. And as if by clockwork, we reached the Romanian border.
Well, I'm very happy to welcome you to Romania. We've just crossed the border. There's a few formalities that need to be sorted out.
And yes, so somewhat confusingly, despite both Hungary and Romania being in the EU, there are still passport control formalities here. This is because Romania is not part of the Schengen zone, the first country in fact that we've entered on this trip that is not. Thankfully this means as passengers on the Orient Express, we don't need to do much as our stewards manage our passports on our behalf. I elect to spend the time stretching my legs along the platform in an effort to walk off some of this fine food. Back on the move again, I think it's time we check out the onboard boutique, located towards the front of the train. This also means saying hello to an old friend, Massimo, who we met on our previous trip. A lovely and extremely knowledgeable man who has some incredible stories to tell from the past 20 years he's worked on board. We actually have some onboard credit to spend thanks to booking with my friend Jarvis, so simply had to indulge in a few gifts. With the sun setting over the Romanian countryside, it's time again for our dinner arrangements. We're dining back in La Oriental tonight. We've been trying to get into the last remaining restaurant car, Côte d'Azur, but it's been incredibly popular. Hopefully tomorrow. Unfortunately, there's been an ongoing issue with the AC this afternoon, meaning it's rather warm. It's actually why you won't see me in my dinner jacket and just a shirt this evening. Right, what should we have tonight then? It all looks very tasty to me. We'll start with a traditional Romanian plum-based spirit, Suica, which is sweet, juicy and pretty strong. Next we'll move on to G&Ts with our dinner. To start, we're served scampi ravioli, bisque and green vegetables, which is both delicate and delicious. For main, the veal chop is served with a chanterelle sauce. As we continue into more rural areas, the train garners more attention. Remember, this route is only run once a year, so it's quite the occasion when it passes. Next, we're served a palate cleanser of raspberry sorbet. Many opt for a cheese course next, but we have greater things on our agenda, the chocolate souffle tart with vanilla ice cream. Talk about my favourite dessert, spectacular. With dinner out of the way, it's time to head to the bar car for cocktails and live music. I'm not alone when I say this is the best carriage on board, smiles and laughter all around. Like clockwork, it's Singapore Sling and Bailey's time for Millie and I, as we sit back and enjoy entertainment from a talented Romanian singer. It's at this point the bar staff invite me over for a cocktail lesson. Let's make a margarita. First up, tequila, triple sec, lime juice, now to shake over ice, and finally to strain and serve. Well, good morning from the Romanian mountains. Today we'll feature 2 stops in both Sinaia and the capital city of Bucharest. Time for a brief in-room caffeine hit as we roll into Sinaia station. Sinaia is a town and mountain resort in Prahova country and is named after the monastery built in 1695. As I mentioned last night, the further east we go, the more attention the train gets, and we've drawn quite the crowd of locals. Anyhow, time for our morning excursion.
Well, a very good morning from an unexpected bus ride. We're in Sinaia. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Sinaia.
I think it's Sinaia. And we're off to go and have a look at a castle.
This town is famous for the King's summer residence, a neo-Renaissance palace built in 1873. Pele's Castle. It's actually most relevant to our journey, as the first passengers on the Orient Express were personally invited by King Carol to visit the castle to mark its completion. The tradition of stopping here has continued to this day. Next, we're shuttled back to the station to reboard the train. I love the routine at each platform, where the staff are there to warmly welcome you back on board. It's not long before we depart, bound for Bucharest. I also make it lunchtime, so we'll head back to our regular haunt of La Oriental and settle down at one of the tables. To begin, we're served half-cooked red prawn, tomato water, herbs and summer flowers. For main, we're offered sea bass, but as explained earlier, you can substitute a dish with your preferred meat. Millie goes for a steak, whereas I have to try the duck confit again. It's just so tender and delicious. To close, we have the tarte tatin, which is essentially caramelised apples in pastry with vanilla ice cream. In what seems like no time at all, we're crawling into Bucharest Gare du Nord.
Welcome to Bucharest.
We have arrived, the capital city of Romania. Now we're here, I think, just overnight, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we need to go and find our accommodation. We're not sleeping on the train tonight, which is a first. And most importantly, we're going to be able to get a shower.
Yeah.
And have an ensuite bathroom. Anyway, let's go find our guide and get our transfer over to the hotel.
We'll take a motor coach the short distance across town to our hotel, the Intercontinental Anthony Palace, right on Revolution Square. The palace is quite the historic landmark, opened in 1914 and designed in an Art Nouveau style. It's likely where many would have stayed pre or post to taking the Orient Express back in the 1920s, so again it's pretty special to follow in these fabled footsteps. We'll be here just for the night, which will be quite the change to sleeping on a bunk bed going at 70 miles an hour. This evening Belmont have booked out the famous Romanian restaurants Caru Cabere, from beer to traditional foods, dancing and music. It's fair to say that we may have got a little carried away with the Swaker.
Well, good morning and it's welcome back to Grandeur station here in Bucharest, where we're about to reboard the Orient Express.
We're warmly greeted back at the platform by staff and a local musician before heading back on board Carriage A. Within a few minutes we're off, bound for yet another country. Today will see us head southeast and into Bulgaria, travelling all the way to the coastline of the Black Sea and in turn to Varna, arriving in time for sundowners on the beach. First up, let's head to the bar car, as whilst it's brilliant in the evening, it's equally as divine during the day. With its plush blue seating, intricate marquetry and floral displays, it's the perfect setting to unwind whilst listening to the gentle keystrokes of the grand piano with the countryside gliding past outside. Most importantly for mid-morning of course, it's the espresso machine which we'll put to good use right away. With morning leading into early afternoon, we're invited to take lunch in Toilette du Nord. Don't worry, the final restaurant we're yet to try is coming up later tonight. Unfortunately, the AC issue we experienced yesterday is still persisting throughout the train. I guess arguably we're getting a more authentic original experience. Right, what delights do we have to tickle our fancy this lunchtime then? It seems to be rather seafood focused, and whilst lobster does certainly appeal to me, sea bream tartare does not. Naturally there's an alternative because, well, it's the Orient Express, darling. Here's the vegetarian menu for reference. This is available at every mealtime. Being previously vegetarian, believe it or not, I really value flexibility on dietary requirements. We're nearing the border with Bulgaria, and interestingly what constitutes the border between the two countries is the River Danube. We'll be needing to pass over the Friendship Bridge, otherwise known as the Danube Bridge. Opened in 1954 and spanning over 7,000 foot in length, it was certainly quite the engineering achievement back in the 1950s. Now in Bulgaria, we'll pick our lunch back up with my appetizer of tomatoes and condiments. A beautiful and inventive take, that's for sure. For main, we certainly don't want to miss out on the American style lobster, which is cooked to perfection. And just like that, we arrive into the border checkpoint station of Bruges, where our passports will once again be checked.
Well, I'm very happy to welcome you to Bulgaria, and now we have to sort out the various passport formalities. It's not going to be like what we have in Turkey tomorrow, but more on that when we cross that border.
With border formalities completed, we're cleared to depart, so it's onwards to the Black Sea for us. I realise you haven't really seen the washroom facilities, which may be of interest as it's not exactly conventional for a sleeper train. In line with the authenticity of the 1920s, you simply wouldn't have had one, so these are positioned to the rear of each carriage. Unfortunately, our AC problem gets worse, to the point where the Bulgarian locomotive has to be replaced. This means we're in for quite the delay while sitting here in the heat. Personally, it's all part of the adventure for me, but I know many on board were quite upset, as this also cuts down the time in Varna quite significantly. Thankfully, a new locomotive is finally deployed, and we're back on our way to the Black Sea. Sadly, our dreams of a sundowner on the beach are quite out of the question, with the sun starting to dip below the horizon. We honestly weren't expecting such a welcome committee, though I'm told our arrival has even made national news. What a truly lovely reception.
Well, good evening and welcome to Varna, Bulgaria. We have finally arrived on the Black Sea, We're getting a quick transfer just down so we can apparently dip our toes in the Black Sea itself. But as you can see from around me, we've got quite the welcome party here at Varna station.
Now you may be wondering, Varna is quite out of the way, as a more direct route would have been due south to the Turkish border. This is because originally the Orient Express would travel only as far as Varna, and the remaining section to the then Constantinople would have been by steamer, taking a further 14 hours. Though this changed in 1889 when the railway was completed all the way down to Istanbul. Worry not, no steamers for us today, and we'll be back on board after dipping our toes in the Black Sea. Back at Varna railway station, it's time to embark upon our final sector, and perhaps the most significant. Over the next 18 hours or so, we'll make the final push to Istanbul. Now, because of the earlier delays, we're currently heading to dinner at 11 PM, but we're excited as it's finally time to try out the most popular restaurant, Côte d'Azur. Located near the front of the train, it's not hard to see why this is so popular. It's absolutely stunning, from the royal blue fabrics, intricate detailing, and René Lalique glass. We're assigned a table for two by the window. First order of business is of course a glass of Laurent Perrier Rosé Champagne. Let's take a look at tonight's menu then. It seems to be rather seafood focused again, but by now we know what to do here. To start, I indulge in the caviar as an amuse-bouche. I mean, it's not quite the €600 variety, but it's a decent taster. Can you tell by the movement, the train is really going at a fair pace. I guess it's a rush now to the Bulgarian-Turkish border for daybreak. So for main we've opted for a steak rather than the turbot, cooked medium rare for me and rare for Millie. Drawing close to midnight, we're served our dessert, Grand Marnier Ice Soufflé. It's at this point our fabulous entertainment begins. A truly special evening, but my word, I'm ready for bed now at 2 AM. We awake just as we cross through the Bulgarian-Turkish border. In my semi-sleepy state, it truly feels like a dream that we've finally made it to Turkey. We're a long way from Paris now.
Well, I'm very happy to welcome you officially to Turkey. So just waiting for our lovely steward George to come and escort us over to passport control to sort all of that out whilst we enjoy some local entertainment.
Officially stamped out of our last country, it's time to reboard the train. Our larger bags will be sent ahead by road to our hotels in Istanbul. So it's time for a final meal service in the L'Oriental restaurant. Naturally it's a Turkish theme this afternoon, with even the staff dressed in traditional attire. The menu is extensive, and I'm told the days prior to our trip, the head chef travelled to Istanbul to arrange delivery of fresh ingredients, which were just picked up at the border. We'll start with the meze assortment, from stuffed vine leaves, baby stewed aubergine, and Ottoman-style spiced tomato. For main, let's tuck into the apple stuffed with minced lamb, sultanas, raisins, nuts, and rice. So good. Finally, and I'm sure you'll guess this one, baklava, served with fresh watermelon juice. With lunch out of the way, we have one last important task to hand. Let's head to the bar car. After some all-important photos with the incredible bar staff, it's time to write some postcards. I bet you didn't know the Venice Simplon Orient Express have their own postal service of sorts. I hope my gran will like her little souvenir from our journey. Millie will now post these in the on-train post box, which should arrive back in the UK sometime in the next few weeks. Now, we mentioned it earlier, but we need to talk about the all-important cost. This is the most expensive journey of my life, though there's a plot twist. A few months ago, I stumped up £42,000 for the last historic compartment on the train. Remember, as always, this is self-funded, but easily the most I've ever invested into a video. So I've just received a letter from Belmont a week after returning, apologising profusely for the delays, missed excursions and AC issues. They've offered a full refund in cash or an increased future credit to be used on Belmont hotels and trains. Now that really is quite something and certainly goes the extra mile. With that, we pull slowly into Istanbul and indeed the conclusion of our epic adventure.
Hello, we have arrived in Istanbul after a magical trip.
It's been absolutely unbelievable, and to think that we've come all the way from Paris. Well, again, it's going to take a long time to process, but certainly one of the most incredible trips of our entire lives. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you all again next time.
Bye!